Hi everyone. I'm Sam's brother, I'm sure all of you know. Thank you all for coming. Wish we were under better circumstances for sure, but thank you all who are here and who are watching from other places. And so Sam's passing was definitely sudden, unexpected, and we still really don't know why. It was very surreal to see him essentially look like he was sleeping on the couch. But we know it was painless and peaceful because there was no sign of anguish or agony. Hopefully we can all go out that way someday. But thank you everyone who's contributed in any way that they can, even if it's just by being here, and any other way that you guys have. Sam was special to all of us in one way or another, and I'm sure he would hate this, knowing how many people were around, but we'll always remember what he brought to our lives.
Good day, everybody. I recognize most of you and don't recognize some, but I met most of you through Sam. I've known him for almost more than 25 years, and I'm sure that lots of us here have known him for longer. He was that kind of guy. He was a keeper. He was a patient, gracious, he was patient and gracious. He loved chaos, but he didn't want to hurt anybody. He loved what chaos could be if it were fun. He was a fun guy. He loved to game, but he was always the quiet guy at the back of the room when it came to social gatherings. And anyone who was fortunate enough to reach out to him and speak to him would be pleasantly surprised, because still waters ran deep with Sam. He was a great guy. I could go on for hours with stories, but most of them wouldn't mean anything. But I have one story. One time, Sam and I were out hiking with the Lewis brothers on the Bruce's Trail, and we had grown separated. So Sam and I were in a pair, and I was talking, as usual. And Sam noticed that I was about to step on a Massasauga rattler. So he said something, and it was right there. So Sam did something that alarmed me. He took a step towards it, which freaked it out. And I took a step away from it. And we went back and forth, Sam put himself into jeopardy in order to help me get out. There was no discussion. It was just what he did. Because that's the kind of person Sam was. He cared about his friends. He cared deeply about his family. And he was never the sort, like Ben said, he was never the sort to want lauds or honors for himself. He was always just happy to be quiet, to do his part, and join the party after. So, thank you, Sam. Thank you for being my friend. I will sorely miss you.
I'll try to project my voice as much as possible. You guys having hearing aids myself, I like it when I can hear what's happening. I'm going to read a couple of verses out of Ecclesiastes. I promise it won't be anything too long. Ecclesiastes was supposed to be written by Solomon, who was supposed to be very wise. So some of these things, even now, are profound. And verse 1 says, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the sun. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance." It goes on from several more comparisons. And I think this modifies what we are going through at this time. This was, as Ben said, so totally unexpected. There's no reason that we've been given as to why. So it was his time, and he went peacefully, but left us behind to feel the sadness, to feel the emptiness. The most profound things that Sam did for me in my later years, every week, once a week, he would prepare supper and bring it down to me. It was usually fish and chips or chicken nuggets and chips, and that was fine. I enjoyed those dinners because he took the time, and he also kept me supplied with boiled eggs. So he would bring 4 or 5 down at a time, and then I'd have to tell him they were finished, and he'd make some more. The little things. He would help me get out of the car. He would help me down the stairs if I felt dizzy that day. Those are the things that I'm going to miss the most. I would like to acknowledge some of my sons. Paul, stand up, please. Chris, or Percy, Marcus. These young men, when they were young men, spent hours at our home with Sam and Ben, playing different games, hanging out, doing whatever they wanted to do. And I know there were 3 or 4 more, but they have not been able to come today. And they are all my sons. Thank you, boys.
Love you, boys.
So, I like the one line that's on the back of the memorial page. It says, "You have not passed away until everything that you have done stops." And as long as there's people alive that you know and can say, "I was his friend, I am his cousin, I am whatever, niece, nephew, best friend," then we will not forget Sam.
Revenge. That was the first word he said as my best man at my wedding. And I get it now. He went on to talk about many experiences of when we were younger, and he did what he thought were awful things to me, and I tried to get him for it. like hitting me in the head with a hammer. But I can't say as I was perfect, because I locked him out on the balcony in Toronto, and he got so mad he punched a window with his hand and broke it. Of course, Dad put all the blame on him, which was very typical of Dad. It's because he was the older brother. He was supposed to be the one giving example. We went on and started forming more than a brotherhood, but a true friendship. He was the one that introduced me to music of all kinds. He had a friend that we would go visit on the York University campus buildings, who introduced us to the old 50s rock. And that was great, and I didn't know anyone else listened to it until years later. It was just this thing. And then we moved to Alcona, and he joined Columbia House, which is many a person's introduction to music. I think the first tape he ever got was Bon Jovi's Slipper. And it went from there into more hair metal, and then into harder and more aggressive metal. But his love for Ozzy led me to many a concert, and it was just awesome the times we had together. Going camping with Pollux on Bruce Trail, where our canoe capsized, and Pollux was the only one with a voice of reason saying we shouldn't go out on the canoe this day. Which is very sad, because he was like
I was 6.
6. But me and Sam were both done. But that's also where I learned how intensely his hatred of water was. Because he was in the back of the canoe pushing, and I was at the front trying to pull. And then we switched, and he swam so fast so he could get out of the water, because he did not want to be in the water anymore. And he was there, and half the time it would have taken me. Pollux was just being a good guy and trying to bail out the canoe, which was not working. Yeah, you did. And many an occasion with Sam was just spent talking one-on-one. And he would do that with a lot of his friends. And he would talk philosophy or science or whatever thought was on his mind at that time. And he would make what could be a 10-minute conversation into a 3-hour conversation. But you were never bored or upset by this, because you were learning as much as he was learning at the same time. But all these things accumulated into my brother, my friend, and someone I looked up to very much. And he finally got his revenge for my revenge.
My name is Marcus, and I have the privilege of calling Sam a friend, especially during that strange and wonderful stretch between the winter of childhood and that spring of adulthood. Sam I knew lived in those years, and I can't speak to the man that Sam grew into. We lost ways, as many of us do in our 20s, and we move on to different parts of our lives. But I do want to take the time today to pause and to honor Sam and the impact he had on my life. So I met Sam, I think it was grade 7 or 8, when you guys came into Alcona. Back then, he was still at that awkward charm, if you will. I think you were still cutting his hair, right? And by high school, we had grown close. It was only a few short years, but they were very formative. And they left a mark that stayed with me all my life. Sam was confident, he was curious, and unapologetically himself at an age when most of us were still trying to figure out who we were. And I admired that, and I envied it as well. When I think of Sam, I think of the summer of Jesus. The long hair, his beard, the jean shorts and the vest, walking barefoot throughout Alcona, as if he belonged to the earth itself. I think of our adventures, the late night walks through Alcona, talking about girls, the future, our fears, the kind of honesty you only have when you're 15, right? That openness. There were the big moments too, swimming from the 8th line to the 7th line, being stupid, if you will, and almost drowning along the way. Learning what Jack Daniels was and deciding never to drink it again. Talking about girls and then first loves. Trying to understand love and grow into what it means as a man. He introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons, something I have the privilege to introduce my daughter to. He introduced me to music. That became a part of who I am, especially Ozzy. Whether it was Black Sabbath or Ozzy on its own, that sound shaped me, and I'll never forget, seeing Ozzy in Toronto with him and Christina and others. To this day, I still think that 90s genre is the pinnacle of rock. Sam saw the world differently, there's no doubt about it. He was an artist, he was a wanderer. And I think that gypsy was in both of us. I remember our trip to Tobermory, the nights, the laughter, the defining arguments, the catching of fish, the cooking of frog legs, drinking of brackish water, and trying to survive. I remember our trips to Toronto to dances, hitchhiking, Halloween pranks and stuff that you would do as a young kid. And those small rites of passage just shaped you and shaped me for the rest of my life. Sam was a center point. He was a North Star that pulled a group of friends like one can only wish for. Even after life took us in different directions, his influence continued to shape me and my friends. Those next stage of friends were attributable to him and his influence on my life. And it was a privilege having him literally just out my back door. He was literally through the bush and 2 houses up. And that closeness made childhood very, very magical. Those moments felt ordinary back then, but this last few weeks have made me realize just how extraordinary they were. I feel sadness today for the loss and for the distance that ended up growing up between us. But I feel gratitude. Sam shaped a part of me that will exist always. And when life is quiet, when I can go to those times back in Alcona, those years with Sam and others, Hershey, Paul, Ben, Mara, it's like opening a window to a simpler, freer moment. And it reminds me of John Cougar Mellencamp's Glory Days song, right? How those bright moments of youth echo in all who we become. Every time I hear that tune, it takes me right back to Sam, to laughter, and to the freedom and friendships that shaped who I am, and I suspect who all of us are. The Sam I knew lived in those years, and the friend who helped me grow up and left a mark will never fade. I didn't know Sam, the man he became, but I'll always be grateful for the friend that he was. So I just want to say thank you, Sam. Thank you for the adventures. Thank you for the laughter and the lessons. You were a light in those early years that shone brightly in the hearts of everyone here. Thank you.
I will say you left out the Finland Hun there, Marcus. Well, I will say that Sam touched us all in many ways. can, I'll say that, yeah, he was pivotal in a lot of our lives. I will close down this portion, and we got some coffee and snacks set up and mingling. And after we are done here, we will be going to have a celebration of life at Debut, which is right on the 5 Points, for a little bit of an after party. All are welcome to attend. I'll close this part down now. Thank you all for coming again.